Welcome to the Accidental Business Owner podcast, the show that lifts the lid on what it really takes to grow, scale and successfully exit your business without losing your sanity, soul or savings. Real stories, raw lessons, proven strategies. Let's dive into this week's episode. Hi, I'm Jay Allen from the Accidental Business Owner podcast, and today I'm going to be sharing with you as to why command and control is killing your business. I was having a coffee after one of our coaching sessions with a guy called Pete. Pete's been running his business for about 11 and a half years now, and has got a small team of about 12 people. I say about 12, he's got some seasonal workers, so during the busy season, during the summer period, he's up to 12, sometimes 12 and a half, a part-time member of staff in the business. But there's 8 on payroll, and the others are regular subbies that he uses during a busy period. But ultimately, he's somewhere between the 8 and 12, let's call it 10 members of staff collectively throughout the year. And what I was interested in is the conversation that we've had over the last week or so has been around recruitment and retention. And despite Pete having a great little business and doing some good numbers, ultimately looks after his staff relatively well. They've got some good perks and benefits just beyond that of a simple salary. That he does seems to have a bit of a retention issue with regards to members of staff coming in, spending a season with him, moving on again, and not really that stalwart team that's going to be able to take him from where he is to where he wants to be, and spending less time on the tools and working in the business. So the session that we had less than a week ago was to talk about the retention problem that he's got, and that it's not a recruitment problem. It's not that he's just got to be able to find an easy way of being able to replace them. It's about being able to plug the bath and the hole that he's got in the business to find out as to why it is that if he's got such a great little business that other members of the team don't see it as such and choose to move on. Sometimes out of the industry, sometimes for the same salary. So it's not your usual circumstances. It's not your usual culprits as to why somebody might choose to leave. So we spent a session just looking at Pete and his business through the eyes of a disenfranchised or unsatisfied employee. And what we quickly identified wasn't about the vision or the values. It wasn't about the battle plan that we spoke about in one of the previous episodes. It wasn't about where he wants to be able to take the business. It was his command and control. The fact that Pete still needed to have control over every single aspect of the business. That there was so much micromanagement going on that the employee turned up and did the work, but almost disengaged as they turned up in the morning because everything was being controlled and managed on their behalf. They didn't have to think, was a leaving comment from one of the last people out the door. I got sick to death. I was bored, was what they wrote on their leaving sheet. And when I followed up and I questioned them, I sent an email, I introduced myself, I told them who I was, what I was doing. I provided some form of incentive for them to be able to give me some open, honest and transparent feedback about why they'd chosen to leave. And they said some lovely things about Pete. They were very complimentary about Pete and his wife, who runs the business in the background. She runs all of the admin and the back office side of it, so he could spend more time with the clients and the staff on site in their business. He was very complimentary about the both of them. He got nothing to complain about. He just said he was bored. So when I delved a little deeper, I needed to understand why he was bored and what led to that boredom and what Pete could have done in order to be able to prevent him from being bored. He just said, well, there's nothing new. It's deja vu. It's like Groundhog Day was the words he used. He says, I turn up on a Monday and it might as well be a Friday. We do the same thing every single day. I'm not allowed to be able to make any decisions on my own. Pete's already done all of that. We simply turn up and do the work. Then after a year, he got bored of not engaging this. So let me quickly share with you some research that was done a number of years ago now by one of the top universities in America. Forgive me, I can't remember for the life of me as to which of the esteemed universities completed this research. The name of the university escapes me. But the important bit was what they discovered. They found a large measured test group, and they put a beta in, a caveat to be able to determine as to a group of people that are going to be tested and a group of people that are going to be tested against, to be able to determine as to the impact that this is going to have. And they looked specifically at manual labour jobs where the person is physically responsible for doing something. It might be picking it up and putting it down, it might be moving it from here to there, it might be putting a sticker on or doing something with the product. But they looked at a manual labour process to understand as to how to be able to improve retention. And they measured it against 11 different criteria, where salary was one of the 11 criteria. If I paid them more money, could I get them to do more work? If I paid them less money, would it automatically determine that they do less work? And then they measured parameters. If I paid them a lot less money or a little bit less money, how much would that actually impact both retention over a longer period of time and productivity over a short period of time? And then they looked at a bonus schedule, and they looked at everything to do with salary and the remuneration package as a comparable to the work done. But then they changed the parameters and said, what if we provided a better lunch and a better canteen facility and stuck the salary at the same? What happens if we offered flexible working hours and kept the salary the same? What happens if we recognised them as individuals and gave them a name badge and they were always referred to as such rather than an operator on their computer login and the likes? What happens? And they tested a whole series of other measures comparing that to productivity and retention against salary. And what they were able to identify over the period of this conducted survey was money, i.e. salary itself, the cash per hour that we pay an employee, becomes 11th on the list of their priorities if the other 10 things are taken care of and done well. And alarmingly, of the 10 things that could become more of a sway to someone's productivity and loyalty and lifetime value to the business, other than salary and a pay rise, of the 10 things that were above salary, 9 of them didn't include any form of change in cost to the business whatsoever. The first 9 things that were important to the employee had nothing to do with their salary or remuneration or how much it was going to cost the business for them to be there. They were ultimately free. And yet we found that by putting all of these 9 things in place prior to salary, that productivity could be increased by between 9 and 14%, and lifetime value, i.e. loyalty value, could increase ROI by as much as 126%. So what are the 10 things? Well, quite simply, it was about having a clear mission of a business and something that they could associate with. Not just I want to make lots more money for shareholders, but a mission that involved them. Something that they were proud to be part of. And I've seen a large number of companies start to be able to engage in ESG or environmental social governance, having some form of payback for the work that they do, possibly becoming a B Corp organisation and a business for good, but something that the business is targeting to be able to achieve, that is something for an employee to be proud of, that say, and I'm part of that and we're contributing to that. There's a lovely example about a manufacturer of insulin, the medication used by diabetics. There is a manufacturer in Canada of insulin whose mission statement is to eradicate diabetes on the planet. Now think about that for a second. Their mission is to eradicate diabetes on the planet, where their product is to support people with diabetes. They would ultimately be making themselves redundant by achieving their mission. And yet, since they've made it their mission, their growth of their business has averaged 148% quicker and larger than the other insulin manufacturer in the country. Over 150%, almost 150% faster growth for a company that ultimately will make itself redundant one day, because the people are buying into the mission and not about how much they pay per hour to be able to do the work. So having a clear mission that is of relevance to the customer, to the products, to the service, to the supplier, to the employee, to the local community, would be key to being able to have people stay with you as opposed to go to the competitor. Being treated as an individual with a name badge and being recognised as such, as opposed to just the marketing team, operations, finance, sales, being able to be acknowledged as a team, having some form of flexible working hours to allow for life to happen, acknowledging that I'm a family man and having some form of abilities to be able to support me and my family. That might be a creche or childcare vouchers, or the ability to be able to take some time off on sports day, or to leave early on school, teacher-parent evenings and that type of thing. To recognise that I've got a pet. There was a 1% increase in productivity and a 3% decrease in churn value of people leaving the business. If you were allowed to bring your dog into work, or to have a pet-friendly day, was one of the things that they found important to American workers. But there were a whole series of things that could be done to support the business and the employees within the business to be able to feel more like they were valued than simply paying a salary at the end of each month. And interestingly, by getting all of these things in order and planning them out and being able to work with your employees to establish as to what do you want, in order at some stage in the future for you to consider this the best place in the world to possibly work for you. What are the things that we could do? And a lot of that is about being able to remove the red tape and the bureaucracy and the rubbish that goes round inside businesses, certainly scaling businesses. Now, don't get me wrong, it's all about being able to have structure. It's all about being able to have systems and processes. But you can't afford to have them that are so locked down and micromanaged that it disengages people's thinking. People want to feel valued, particularly in a time where AI is such a growth thing and a risk and challenge to people right now, that they want to feel valued. They want to be a part of the mission and the goals and the values of a business. They want to feel heard. And if you can ensure that you've got things that are supporting each and every member of your staff to be heard, to understand the importance of cohesion and collaboration within the business as much as it is with our supply chain, then in actual fact it increases productivity and it reduces churn rate without having to think about having to chip away and pay more salary. Now, don't get me wrong, salary is important, and I can't finish this episode without saying that what they subsequently concluded is that the moment that salary is not enough, and I'll cover that caveat in a second, but the moment that the salary is not enough, it jumps from being the 11th most important to being the first most important. If you get any of these wrong, then all of a sudden salary goes from being number 11 importance to number 1 importance, and they don't pay me enough to work here. But getting it right, and you buy loyalty, you buy transparency, you buy a team ethic rather than individual ethic, you buy people-centric, and all of that reduces the need for micromanagement, for switching this off within your employees and creating churn value. So my question as we answer for you to answer today is, how much are you getting in the way of your employees becoming the best that they can be? What do you need to do differently or to stop doing to allowing them to shine? How do you help and support them to grow as individuals, not just as employees, but as human beings? Because the loyalty will come back tenfold when you get it right. Please stop being the command and control that is killing the opportunity within the employees within your business. If you want to learn more, simply reach out, and I'd love to have a conversation with you about how to use our recruitment and retention revolution, part of the Adazero methodology, to be able to help measure and understand the loyalty value in your business and how to be able to get more from a team by enabling them to be more. God bless, take care. I'll be back again next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Accidental Business Owner podcast with me, Jay Allen. If today's episode sparked a thought, challenged your thinking, or gave you a new tool to grow smarter, share it, rate it, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of transformation. God bless, take care, and I'll see you again next week.